Hi, everyone. This is Jess Seldner with the Who Not Do series for GALvanize, and I am here today with Hannah Gordon, who is the Chief Administrative Officer and General Counsel of the San Francisco 49ers. So my first question is regarding an article that I read where you said that the advice that you'd give to yourself, your 18-year-old self, which is about my age, is you said, fear is the only enemy. So I was wondering, when in your life did you learn that lesson?
Oh, not till a lot later after 18. I think that I probably started to learn it in college, like in the place that you are, covering football for the UCLA Daily Bruin and realizing that there were a lot of things that felt big and scary, but every time I went through them, I came out stronger on the other side. So for example, when I was close to your age, I went to cover the Senior Bowl for the first time, and a reporter there told me that I wouldn't be able to go in the locker room to get my interviews. And so that's another place where fear is the only enemy. I could have listened to that person and been afraid, and I decided not to, and I just went ahead, and I wasn't stopped. And so I think, I started to learn those lessons at your age, but I think it took a lot longer to really understand that it really is the only enemy.
Awesome. So you did start out with the UCLA Bruins. That was your first sports experience. That's awesome. And as a journalist there, that was kind of where you were projecting your life to go at that point. And then you caught wind of Hannah Storm and everything changed. But I'm wondering, what led you away from journalism and towards law?
Sure. Well, I love talking to young journalists like you because I really think that that experience has served me in everything that I've done since then, including in law. And really, it was when I was working at UC Berkeley in their athletic department that I decided to apply to law school. I've always loved school. I've always been nerdy and enjoyed learning. And so I wanted to go back to school, and I felt like law was going to give me a great jumping off place for doing a lot of different things, because it's a very sort of facile and agile background to have. And that's how I ended up here.
How have you had to change your work personality in order to be seen as more effective? Because a lot of times women in the sports industry or even the law field are shown that they have to change themselves in order to better fit in with the industry that's male dominated. So what changes did you see kind of in the way that you had to act, and did that translate into your real life personality?
That is a great question. So actually a woman hired me, and a lot of people don't realize the 49ers is a woman-owned team as well. And there are currently, our numbers have been increasing. So in the NFL, there's now 8 of us who are general counsels of NFL teams. So we are making some slow, steady, hopefully steady progress. But in terms of how did I adjust my personality, I think that in many ways I was already pretty well suited for the environment that I came into, because I'm very competitive, I'm very direct, and I think that football has both like a teamwork aspect and then a kind of chain of command, sort of military-based kind of aspect to it. And I think those, again, I have a very type A personality, so that all suited me well. I also have just a horrible like sailor's mouth, so that also fit in just fine. That said, I do think that there are certain ways that sometimes we do change ourselves in certain environments. And I think that for me, over time, that has faded more and more. And I'm able to bring more and more of my authentic self to work. And not everybody's going to like your authentic self, is the other thing that I discovered over time. And so the great thing about getting older is you just care less. Like you.
Yeah, I could see where that'd be a plus. One of your main motivations is women's empowerment. I see that on your Instagram, on your social media platform. You're using that for good. And I'm wondering why it is so important to empower women in today's world. Can you tell me your perspective and why it's such a pressing matter?
Sure. So, I mean, I think the condition of women and girls in the entire world is a pressing matter because it's simply so unequal. And obviously, we're incredibly blessed in the United States that the problems we face here are far less severe than the problems faced in some other countries. But what we see is that no matter what country you're talking about, when women succeed, everyone succeeds. So for me, it's not ever about women versus men. Like I want to lift all people up, and it's really about figuring out where is there injustice or inequality and how can we resolve that so that everybody can do well. And we see GDP goes up when women succeed. We see, that whether you're talking about political office or anywhere else, the more you see gender equality, the better the outcomes. And this is true for companies also. So when you see women on boards, when you see a diverse workforce, those companies do better in terms of their profits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in order to have the most success, you do have to have diverse intellectual backgrounds. So I'm glad you said that. One of the agendas that empowers women is progressive legislation. And you're an avid supporter of Close the Gap California, which is a campaign for equal wages. And I was wondering from a attorney perspective, if you could introduce a bill that is meaningful to you specifically, what one thing would you focus on changing?
Oh my goodness. That is such a good question, which no one has ever asked me before. And
I was trying to get at. I was trying to ask you questions you've never heard.
Yeah, no, I've never heard that one. And this one is hard because I also oversee our public affairs practice. So I think that, there are so many things that I would like to see happen in our society. And so it's very hard to pick just one bill. It would probably be a very long bill, whatever it was that I would write. That said, there are some things that I'm really excited about that are happening. You did mention both seeing greater representation in our government and also equal pay, which I think is really important. So perhaps if I were to pick one thing, maybe it would be getting the Equal Rights Amendment ratified. But I also think right now we're seeing a lot of really exciting legislation coming forth, particularly in the state of California, around criminal justice reform and changes to the way that we provide public safety in our communities to make our community safer for everyone, most especially all of our residents, regardless of race.
Mm-hmm. And I understand that community is really important to you because that was one of the driving factors that helped put Levi's Stadium together. So I bet you were really glad that everybody had your back in the area.
For sure.
So one of the last things I'm going to bring up is that after you were laid off from your job in the recession, you were able to find the perfect position that was absolutely amazing for you and you stuck with it and it led to a lot of great things. So with the job hunt, how do you balance the two urges of jumping at the first opportunity that you see and trying to wait and hold out for the dream job that you deserve? Because some of the women at GALvanize were trying to figure out how to not miss an opportunity, but not settle.
Mm-hmm. I think that it is such a struggle. It's a really difficult set of choices you have to make, and it is all very fact specific. So only if a job for you feels like settling, and also only what your situation is. Like there are some times in our lives where we're not going to have a roof over our heads if we don't take the job that's in front of us, and we have to make those choices. And we can do that while still pursuing whatever our dream is. I was very fortunate that I had sort of a long enough period of savings that I was able to hold out for that dream job. But I always tell people, if you can, because a lot of times we think that we can't afford to do what it is that we love. But that's an attachment. It's not that we would be homeless if we didn't get that job. It's that we don't want to give up the car that we drive or the brunches that we go to or whatever else that you're spending money on. And so sometimes you have to make just decisions around what your priorities are versus what your dreams are.
Thank you so much for joining us, guys. My name is Jess Seldner, and we are here with Hannah Gordon for the Who Not Do series with GALvanize.